If you like to play, some of the reading games are fun. There are all kinds of games around numeracy and literacy and storytelling and all those things. And are they great fun for adults? No, but can you use them as a jumping off point to have an interaction with your child? Absolutely. And that's where we really encourage adults to use their smartphones and tablets.
It's common to see parents and young children interacting with digital media on smartphones and tablets. In fact, about 4 out of 10 children under the age of 2 and 8 out of 10 between the ages of 2 and 4 have used a mobile media device. But what impact do these mobile media devices have on young children? The answer depends on whether parents and children are actively engaging together in using digital media. On today's Sound Living, how screen time can benefit children and families. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. The concern about too much screen time dates back to the early days of TV and continues today with computers, smartphones, and tablets. According to K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles, until just over a year ago, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended no screen time at all for young children. However, their most recent guidelines emphasize the importance of parents' engagement with their children when using digital media.
They still have some strong recommendations, but they and many of my colleagues in child development all agree that it's not screen time per se that's the issue. It's isolation with a screen that's the problem. If you're engaging around a screen, that's certainly not an issue at all. It's not an issue of vision or anything that's going to have a negative effect. It's just that we know that there's no substitute for one-on-one interaction.
One of the things I found kind of interesting was the fact that it was saying that around 40% of children under the age of 2, 80% between 2 and 4 have some sort of knowledge or interaction with a mobile device.
Right. There's a lot of really interesting research out there, but certainly, and you see it when you go out. If you're just out and about, you see kids with phones. I mean, I certainly am well aware of this in my own life, and what we have learned is that there have been some really good studies about how effectively smartphones and tablets can be in teaching the information that we want. So, for example, ABCs or numeracy, learning numbers, those things. And what we actually find is that kids get really, really good at manipulating the actual devices. So they can navigate the operating system, an iPad or a Android tablet very, very well. In terms of what they learn, turns out there is, again, no substitute for a human being interacting with them.
One of the things that the Academy came up with was 5 ways that screen time can benefit children and families, and one of those is one that really makes a lot of sense because it's a way to connect either through Skyping, Zooming, or some sort of FaceTime.
Right. This makes perfect sense. We have these tremendous teleconferencing technologies that used to be incredibly futuristic. When we were growing up, you'd see movies of the future and you could talk to someone on a screen from somewhere else. And sure enough, we're walking around with that ability in our pocket. And yeah, it's a great opportunity for children to especially interact with family members that are far away and friends and those things. Particularly for families who have one parent who travels a lot, it's a great opportunity for them to be able to stay connected. And again, there's no substitute for the person being there, but in the end, it's a tremendous benefit. They get to interact with the child and adult. There's an opportunity there. You can check in. You can continue some of your rituals, right, that we know are so important. For example, in my family, we read a book. We do our favorite part. So there's always a period of time where we do our favorite part. And using FaceTime or Skype or any other teleconferencing app, you have an opportunity to continue those things and to provide that same sort of comfort and predictability from a distance.
And even multi-generational, because it's often the case where grandma and grandpa can't always be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a tremendous opportunity to include the extended family in the relationship with young children. And in other cultures across the globe, that's not an issue. The extended family lives with the parents, right? I mean, it's all in the house. But in our culture in the United States, oftentimes grandparents and great uncles and aunts are far away. And so it's a great opportunity for children to learn about older adults and to learn about their grandparents and to interact with them, especially so that when they come and do visit, they have a pre-existing relationship. They don't have to try to form something that's a little more difficult when you don't have that ongoing facial recognition. I mean, you can do it over the phone, but even so, a child isn't really thinking about who's on the other line, being able to see them in their mind's eye, if you get my meaning, whereas FaceTime or Skype or other teleconferencing apps allow for that exact opportunity where the formation of a relationship can be meaningful and real.
You mentioned that they can learn from this digital media concept, but they talk about co-viewing or co-playing with an engaged adult. What do we mean by that? Co-viewing and co-playing.
Yeah, sure. So it's the difference between, I've talked about this in my emergent literacy work. It's the difference between reading to and reading with. So it's one thing to hand a child a tablet and say, have fun. It's another thing to hand a child a tablet and to sit with that child and talk about what's going on the screen, talk about what the puzzle is and what the challenges are and give ideas. You don't want to do the puzzle for them. I mean, come on, you're an adult, right? You ought to be able to do a 3-year-old's puzzle.
At least on a good day.
Right, on a good day. Agreed. But, you want to participate with them. And I, on my way over here, was thinking about this, and I thought to myself that, as long as it's not illegal, I don't care what you do with your child, as long as you're doing it together, right? It makes no difference, and screens are no different than that. As long as you're engaging with your child around it, by all means, enjoy. If you like to play, some of the reading games are fun. There are all kinds of games around numeracy and literacy and storytelling and all those things. And are they great fun for adults? No, but can you use them as a jumping off point to have an interaction with your child? Absolutely. And that's where we really encourage adults to use their smartphones and tablets.
Will the children let us know when they're bored and it's time to move on to something else?
Without question, they will let you know. But there are some things, though, that we as adults need to keep in mind. There's been some evidence that children who view screens on their own actually struggle more with social emotional development, with some of the cognitive development, and they tend to be a little bit more moody. They tend to have a very difficult time with emotion regulation. And I think you can understand why, that really they're sitting there being still, being focused on one thing. And frankly, for children, that's just not a very natural state. And so I would urge caution with relying on the child to tell you in that it is attention provoking, that children will pay inordinate attention to a screen. So generally, as they get older, they'll be able to tell you, okay, I'm done. But early on, it's nice to be able to set limits. And then one other thing that I really caution for adults is, as long as you are engaging together around it, there's no time limit. It's up to you how much time you spend. You don't want to use screens as a reward. You're essentially teaching them that screens are the reward, and so that they will work towards that. And that's not what you're after. There are other rewards that are much more beneficial. Things like time outside or time spent with you as an adult. You just don't want to create a culture in your family where the screen by oneself is the reward.
I think you kind of touched on, but one of the things they want to focus on is the fact that all of this should be high-quality material.
Absolutely. One of the great geniuses of our time, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, his neighborhood. He took the, well, if you can't beat him, join him approach, right? He saw that TV was not beneficial for children, and he needed a way to flip that, to make it so that there was quality programming available to children. I very recently watched his congressional testimony about what they were teaching kids at PBS. And, frankly, those are the kinds of things that you want children to learn: how to get along with people, how to handle your emotions, how to think and dream and be creative.
We've talked about the importance and the value of books, and e-books fall right into that same line.
Yeah, right. It's not the physical nature. I mean, I will say I personally prefer the feel of the paper, the smell of the book, and those things. But that's not of any concern for a child. It's much more the interaction. It's much more what's happening. It's much more the story, the excitement, the sounds, the voices that you can make, the gestures, all of those things. And so, again, the book is a jumping off point. Whether it's on a smartphone, a tablet, or stone tablets, it doesn't matter, because you're really using the content to engage.
One of the things I found interesting was the research that suggested that preschoolers learn best if the books are not full of bells and whistles and sounds and distracting movement.
Yeah, it's really fascinating in that we think that children need these things that are engaging. But it turns out, though, that the stories themselves can be engaging enough, and those things end up being as distractors. Children who are interested will remain interested as long as the content has something to offer. I'm not certain about the need for bells and whistles. What I would say is those are put in by adults thinking that children need them, but there's a tremendous body of research out there that indicates that no, children need the content, and that's about it. You know, if you think about your favorite story as a child, you're not thinking about the book that lit up or the pop-up book that had all the things. I mean, yeah, those are cool, but that's not it. You think about the actual content, the story itself. And oftentimes it's not even just the story. It's the story that was being read with you as a child. Those are the things that you think about. And so, Jeff, as we talk about child development issues, it always strikes me that one thing we as adults could do is just think back on our own childhoods and think about the things that make us smile and that make us feel good and do those things with our kids because they exist. You know, for me, it was my parents reading Frog and Toad with me. And I'll just tell you, Frog and Toad is available at any local library. It doesn't have to be that. You could get on your tablet and see pictures of Frog and Toad and make up your own story about them. It doesn't matter. It's that interaction that's the most important.
And the fifth one that they talk about really kind of fits right in with that. It's about supporting that parent and child togetherness.
Yeah. We talk about school readiness a lot, and digital tools can support school readiness. But here's the thing. I've long said I could teach just about anyone statistics. I mean, I really feel very confident in my ability to do that. What I cannot do is teach people how to get along with other people. I can't teach you very well how to work as a team. I can't teach you very well how to keep your emotions in check. I can, but it will take a very, 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 very long time. The things that you learn in early childhood are those things. And so it's so much better and easier for us to use the tools that we have at our disposal to build those qualities in young children. And how do we learn them? Through interacting with adults and interacting with peers in safe and kind and meaningful ways. And yeah, do we get in fights? Of course we do. But we resolve them, and then we learn how we resolve those things. And so it's really up to us as adults to be able to build our children's capacities through adult-child interaction. That's how they learn about their worlds. If we're not there, they're going to learn something we don't want them to learn. But if we're there, if we're engaged, if we're interacting, they learn that we care about them and that no matter what they do, they're going to have some support. Now, do kids do things we don't want them to do? Of course they do. But they'll learn that there are consequences for those things, but that their parents still engaged. And that's what really we want kids to be able to understand, that there's an opportunity for adult-child interaction that's positive in any domain, whether it's iPads and tablets or watching TV or anything else.
The real takeaway here is just stay engaged if you're going to be using the screens and make sure that you're right there with them.
That's exactly right. You just want to be engaged. You just want to know what's going on. You want to use it as a mechanism for some conversation, some interaction. You can play the game with them. So often children will ask you to play with them. Do it. Is it challenging for you? No, probably not as an adult, but that's not what you're there for, right? You're there to have fun with your child. And so I would encourage anyone, just do it. It's fun. You can have some fun with it. And who knows where it'll lead, right? You don't know if you're going to end up drawing a picture about what you saw on the tablet or writing a song about it or telling a story or any of those things. You just don't know, but you don't need to put any limits on it either.
That's Bradford Wiles, a child development specialist with K-State Research and Extension. More information on using media positively with young children is available at county and district extension offices and on the extension website, ksre.ksu.edu. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.